Welcome to a special episode with Leah Crowfoot, who is a money mindset coach and mentor. And today on this episode, we're going to be talking about money mindset and divine feminine. Before we get into that subject, Leah, would you like to introduce yourself to my audience and let them know more about you?
So, hi, I'm Leah. As Dani's already said, I'm a money mindset coach. In a previous life, I was a corporate management accountant. So I kind of left that profession and retrained as an NLP and timeline therapy coach and practitioner. And I now support female entrepreneurs to become wealth warriors by creating sustainable wealth in their lives and in their businesses through money mindset transformations.
I love that. And we've had some interesting conversations because Leah's has her own podcast as well. And it's been amazing to see your journey as well, because we've met through networking and both seen each other's journeys change a lot. Yes. But money mindset is something that made my journey change, actually. And we did talk about that on Leah's podcast. Definitely go check that out. We will link it in the show notes. But it has come up. When was money mindset something that you began working on in terms of your journey?
I think it started to have an impact on me when I became self-employed. I know from like reflecting back on it now, it's been an issue for a majority of my life. However, I only became aware of it when I became self-employed. And I think the trigger was being in control of generating the income in my life. Because when you're employed, you are guaranteed a wage because you're employed. Most of the time you're guaranteed a wage. But you essentially, you know what's coming in every month, you know what's going out, and it's very structured and masculine. However, when you go self-employed, it completely throws all of those structures on their head, and you have to kind of learn self-belief, self-value, self-worth, and all this plethora of things that, you know, like, oh my God, I'm selling me as a person. What am I worth?
Yeah.
You know, how can I sell me in my brain? So yeah, that was when it all came into play, really.
It makes sense, doesn't it? Because you've, like you say, you've gone from this structure to then having to literally go with the flow of how the money is coming in, which I guess is where the defined feminine energy actually comes in. So for those who are not aware of this, could you describe to us what define, I'm not even saying it right, divine feminine energy is? So what is that all about?
So divine feminine, this is actually something that men and women can access. It is that feminine energy within ourselves. An easy way to explain it is that the feminine energy that we have is leading from our hearts. The masculine energy that we have is leading with our heads. So there's more logic, structure, etc., etc. Whereas if you lead from your heart and you're in that feminine energy, you are going with the flow of life, and which we're going to probably come on to in a bit, and that links very heavily with the lunar cycle, and for women specifically, menstrual cycle. So it's all kind of linking in with cyclical life, essentially.
Yeah. And it does. It ties in so much. I mean, we've just had a conversation before this episode, haven't we, about how it ties in with like the lunar cycles, how it's personally affected ourselves. And it is really interesting. And we have had it talked about a few times on this podcast. So the amount of awareness of it that's coming into the world is amazing. Or maybe it's always been there, hasn't it? I guess we're just speaking about it openly more. So when you are working on your money mindset and you're aware of this divine feminine energy, how can working with both kind of support us in our business? So we know we need to work on the money mindset because we want to bring more money in, but that requires a growth mindset. But then we also need to, I guess, lean into our heart space and follow the flow. So how can we work with both alongside each other to impact our businesses?
I can only kind of speak from my personal experience. So essentially what I've managed to do is you know, when you get those days when you're feeling a little bit flustered because
Yeah.
you've got this massive to-do list, you're like, I don't even know where to start, I don't know what to do. That's when you kind of get out of that feminine energy, because you're out of flow. And when I'm in that state, that's when I kind of walk away.
I do too.
I walk away and just leave it all the way it is, because essentially, if you're sitting there procrastinating, you're not actually doing anything well.
Mm.
Simple as that. However, then if you just take time to sit, lie, whatever it is that calms your mind down, any form of like self-care, self-love. For me personally, if I'm feeling flustered, I will go and meditate. Not everybody's a meditator, so you can either go for a walk, take a shower, read a book, just essentially switch that mind off, because the mind is a very masculine energy. It will then guide you into what you do actually need to do and what you can let go of. However, it doesn't just happen like that, because as a society, we don't generally listen to ourselves very often. That's something that we need to practice, and that is you tapping into that feminine, divine feminine energy. So listening to those gut instincts, listening to those heart-led decisions. Excuse me. And that's essentially how it works with money mindset. So say if you're working on costing your services or your products, if you come up with a price and it makes you feel a bit ick inside, you've got to try and understand why it makes you feel ick.
Yeah.
Is it one, because you know that that's not enough for what your services or products are worth? Or is it higher than you are comfortable selling it at? Which means, do you have some money mindset blocks in there from you stopping you believing you were worth that amount of money?
Mm.
So it's that ick, and then understanding what's behind the ick. So
It's
it
true,
goes
isn't it?
deeper.
I think a lot of it comes down to the blocks. I remember pricing my mastermind, which was a lot higher than previous, but actually what I did was upgraded it. So like when you're pricing something that's going to cost you a lot more, not just your time and energy, like I hired coaches, like associate coaches to be in there with me. And I'm thinking, oh, and I got it at first, but then I realised, well, if I don't charge for what I'm paying these other associate coaches for, then I'm not going to profit from it myself, which we're running a business. And it's really important to do that. But then once I actually sold it at a price, I felt better about it. And it does get easier. And I guess that going into you've got the strategy there that I've done with selling it, but then the flow of just allowing it and it happening. And I guess that's kind of what we have to do, isn't it? We have to follow the flow of our energy and how we feel. And then also with money as well, because as an entrepreneur, money comes in, money goes out. It's just the way it is. Some of it we hold on to, a lot of it we let go of. I know I do. Like I'm investing massively at the minute for growth and scaling. But when we step into that and it's scary and it's new, especially if you're investing for the first time or you're doing something that you've not done before, it might not be with money. How can we follow that flow that comes in? So the flow of the divine energy, but also the flow of money.
I mean, with any investment, you've got to add in that masculine kind of logical thinking. Right, okay, so why am I doing this? Why do I want to invest? So those are the why questions. So you get those clear in your mind first. And then you kind of, whenever you're investing, say, in a person, it's like, how do I feel about this person? How do I feel about this investment? Does it feel like it's going to be worth it for me based upon what I know about that person? Because you're not going to invest large sums of money in somebody you've just met. Simple as that. You're not going to do it, especially when it comes to like a coach or anything like me or you. You want to get to know the person first, to know how you feel about them. So you've got the logic, you know your why, and then you go down to how you feel. And essentially, once you've got those sorted, however much it is, you will or you won't pay it based upon what the why and the feeling. Simple
Do
as
you
that.
think there ever comes a point where you kind of struggle to tap into either? So like you might feel an investment right, but then thoughts interrupt that. So then there becomes like an interruption between the head and the heart, with the logical and the masculine energy, then impacting your heart and that divine energy. And do you feel like we ever invest in a place where we're stuck between and become torn between the two?
Oh, definitely. But I suppose it's then understanding why is there a conflict.
Yeah.
Because kind of in my world, in my life, I go with the flow. And if there's a conflict between my head and my heart, I try and understand why. Is it a belief system that doesn't work? Is my head screaming at me, this is not actually worth it? Even though, say, I love the person who's delivering or offering the service or product, if my head's going, this isn't going to work, it doesn't logically make sense, I've got to understand, okay, so why is my head telling me it doesn't make logical sense? And try and understand that conflict. Because the
Yeah.
last thing you want, if you're going into something, anything, any purchase, I mean, this can be for like a cooker. If you're going into any purchase of anything and there's a heart-head conflict, you want to know why.
Yeah, because you need to be aligned with it, don't you? I mean, I've been in a situation before where I've wanted to invest in, it's kind of just two opposite things. I've wanted to invest in something, and actually, in my heart, I know it's right, but the mind is sabotaging what feels good to me. But then I've also been in the opposite where my mind is sabotaged, so I've not done the thing, even though it felt really good, would light me up. And this happens in all areas, not just investing, but like with strategy and the actions that I take and things that I decide to do in my business. Like, I feel like the more we can love and be in an alignment with what we're doing, and this is probably ironic considering what I do with like the structure, the systems, the organization, but I still do 100% support that. Having that flow, having that intuitive energy is really, really important, and something that I always try to bring myself into as I do implement systems, strategy,
Yeah,
meditation.
I think, sorry, I'm just going to add something onto that, is if you are constantly led with your mind,
Yeah,
your heart is unfulfilled. And to have success in life is to live a happy life. So it might not make logical sense, but you've got a happy heart.
yes.
What's more important? An abundance of money that logically makes sense and being miserable, or an abundance of money that is led by your heart that makes also illogical sense, but logical sense in a way.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Sort of.
Because it does, it's got to have a connection between the two, hasn't it?
Oh,
So
yeah.
if we want to be more intuitive with how we are running our business, how we are stepping into that flow of allowing money to come in, but also spending it as well and investing it where it needs to go, how can we connect with that intuitive self? How can we understand our intuitive self as well?
I think starting to connect with it is just to start listening. Generally, just start listening. We are terrible in this day and age, in this very fast-paced world. We don't listen, and our body tells us the answers that we need to know, but we don't listen. And it eventually gets to a point where it literally slaps us in the face and goes, listen.
It does, it really does.
So I think step one for anybody is just to start listening. You don't have to take action straight away, because the more you practice listening, the more intuitive you will get and the more awareness you will get as to what those feelings and those little niggles saying your gut are, whether they're good or bad. So it's just to start listening and then implementing it into your business and money mindset. It just takes practice.
It really
There's
does.
I mean, we mentioned this on my podcast, that money mindset is not a one-hit wonder. You don't go for some money mindset coaching and then all of a sudden magically you are healed from all your life's money stories and blocks and beliefs and values around money. Because with any form of mindset work, it's always explained like an onion. We know how many layers an onion has. So you start the work, you peel back an onion and you're like, oh, this feels like a breath of fresh air. Then all of a sudden something comes along and that belief you thought you'd let go of magically reappears in a different form. And that's just the next layer. Then you do the work to get rid of that layer. And then all of a sudden something else comes along and knocks you off track again. And then the next layer. But what I found personally in my story is obviously the bigger the onion, the longer it takes. The smaller the onion gets, the quicker these blocks come back and bite you in the ass. But you become so much more aware of when they're coming and you get over them quicker because you're doing practice, you're doing the work. I don't know whether you found the same.
I have, and I actually had a similar conversation yesterday with a friend, because we have both recently had things happen in our lives. One was in my business, but to her, it didn't happen to her, it happened to someone in her family, and it triggered all sorts of mindset stuff, and actually around money. And she said to me before she went home, it brought up a lot of old stuff that I thought I'd dealt with. And I said to her, you've just got to remember, we do deal with them. But then when these unexpected scenarios happen, these circumstances are brought to our attention, we catastrophize because, and she said she catastrophized, and ironically I did with the situation I was in the other week as well. But actually, and I'll share something else I shared with another friend this morning, but when you look at it, it's like, yes, you've dealt with it, but then you've been put in a similar situation, which takes you right back to the experiences and memories you've got, which we do hold on to in our body and our mind and in our heart sometimes as well. And we've got to think back and I think we forget to go back to how we dealt with it. So this was what I was sharing on a thread on social media this morning, that the reality is, even now, when something happens, well, a lot of the time we can kind of deal with stuff, but sometimes when it's a new thing that I've not dealt with before, I catastrophize. And I made a joke of it, but the reality is that I catastrophize and then realize actually I can deal with this, and then I get past it. And I just wish I could literally just skip straight to the end bit when I'm like, hey, I've got this, and sort it out. But the reality is I don't. And I guess that's because I'm human. We're all human. But as long as it's recognizing that, and that each time something happens in that similar scenario, we work through it quicker because we've already done some of that onion peeling, and we get to not to the center, but we get closer to the center of the problem as possible to then move past it and through it. And if we are working on that, we're peeling back the onion, we're working on money mindset, we're being, strategic in our business, but we're also knowing that we need to tap into divine energy. And I think sometimes we are aware of these stuff, we know this stuff, but we don't implement it. And what kind of signs can we look out for that tell us that we're not actually listening to our intuitive self or tapping into that divine energy?
Signs that I have, I'm going to speak from my personal experience, is illness.
Yes.
So when I'm out of flow, I get ill. Also that feeling of overwhelm, because overwhelm is essentially just a story that we tell ourselves that I can't cope. That's the story we're telling ourselves. So when you're feeling that overwhelm, that's your body telling you you're out of alignment. And like I said earlier on, it's that procrastination. So say if you're sat at your desk and you're overwhelmed and you're procrastinating about what you want to do, or you could be procrastinating over a task because somewhere in there you're like, I don't know whether I actually want to do this or not. Either it doesn't make logical sense or it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So those are the signs that I've sort of had. And so I'd say possibly if you get a little bit snappy.
Yeah.
Which I think falls under like the overwhelm and procrastination, because you just feel a bit off. and I'm sure everybody who listens to this can pick a time when they felt off.
Yeah, I think we can all connect to that in some way, because we all have scenarios we face like that, and it all connects, doesn't it? Like our behaviour where we become quite erratic and reactive, procrastinate more, we lack focus. And like you said earlier, the things we can do to change that, I'm a big believer in we shift our energy and we forget we're in control of that. Even though sometimes we feel out of control when we're acting in those ways, but we can get back to our heart-led, intuitive self, full of divine energy. I keep struggling to say it today, I don't know why. And we can go back to that kind of state of mind that's a little bit more positive, that's more productive, absolutely. Because I find I actually talk about this with my clients, because although I'm strategic and I work on like business management and structure, actually, before we even start doing that stuff, it's never going to work if we don't have the right mindset behind it, whether that's managing your finances, doing your business plan, marketing, whatever it is. We need to look at how we feel first before we go and take action on something. And I actually had a conversation. I've got a lady who wants to work with me, and it is the operational side of business. And she's actually listed what she wanted, sent me an email for me to send the packages, and then she added and slipped in right at the end, oh, actually, I do struggle a bit with imposter syndrome or my mindset around doing some of this. I'm like, that's fine. I can help you with that as well, because it's all part of the process. It absolutely is. And it's why I went and qualified as a life coach, actually, because I knew that part was missing. I needed to help with the life stuff, because we are one being, aren't we? We're as a whole. So with money mindset and with divine energy, can we tap into both, each of them separately? What are your top tips for working on them, especially as a business owner? So let's start with money mindset.
I think essentially what you have just said is one of my top tips for money mindset is getting yourself in a mindset of I am ready.
Yeah.
Because if you are not ready to deal with it, you won't. You are uncoachable if you are not ready to let go of the things that you believe are the reason why you can't get where you want to be in life, in business, or whatever it is. So make sure you're ready. And there's so much stuff you can do online, read books to kind of understand it a bit more and prepare yourself to be ready. And that's top tip number one, is get ready. If you're not ready, you're going to struggle, because your body is going to be telling you, no, you can't do that. Unfortunately, we have a very strong subconscious mind that likes to sabotage us and overwhelm us with negative thoughts of things. But one of the big things you can that I tell my clients is, believe it or not, if you are observing those thoughts of the subconscious minds, who do you think's in control? Is it you, or is it your mind? If you're observing those thoughts, how can they be your thoughts?
That's interesting. That I actually don't know how to answer that one.
That is one of the first things that I teach in any of my programs is you are not your thoughts.
Yes. Okay.
You are an observer of your thoughts. Therefore, you are in control of your thoughts, and you can tell your thoughts to do one.
I do actually. I actually do. I just thought that one. I actually say to myself, "Go away."
Yeah. It's true. It's true. There's more that you are observing these thoughts, these blocks, and it's up to you to one, to decide to let go of them, and for two, to realize that you are not your thoughts.
Yeah.
The thoughts create your results, and that's because of the values and beliefs that you have that are instilled into your body. But you as the one being, the connected to the universe, is control of it all. Is in control of it all.
So I say this to my 10-year-old son, as funny as it sounds, because he reacts, and he has very reactive. He's me. his mini-me when I was his age. And it drives me insane. I'm like, oh my God, I've actually birthed another mini-me. And I look back and I can see the patterns repeating and exactly what I was doing. And I've tried explaining to him that you are in control of the words you speak, the actions that you take. But he, like, you know, when kids fight, he made me do it because he did this. Yes, he did that, which he was in control of. You're in control of how you react, especially when it's a situation where, like, he sticks up for his friend at school, but then he gets in trouble. I'm like, you're in control of how you react. You can speak to an adult, speak to a teacher. If they don't listen, come speak to us, and obviously take action from there. And it's all about that reactive and action, and we talk about that a lot. So define. I keep saying define instead of divine, using the wrong letter in the middle of the word. Divine feminine energy. What are your top tips for working with that and within that and bringing that more into our lives?
I think top tip number 1 is to start practicing listening by doing something that quietens your mind. So whatever that is. I mean, I've literally in my pin board just behind my screen, I've got a list of 50 things, and they are 50 things that bring me joy. And there's like swimming, walking, reading, sharing, bath, just whatever it is, whatever you do, you know, when you're doing something, you have all these thoughts popping into your mind.
Yeah. Start
doing that and listening to the thoughts. And become consciously aware of the thoughts that you're having. And that's kind of practice number 1. And number 2 is just think about how you feel on a daily basis. We are kind of touched on like the lunar cycle. We are all human beings on this 29 and a quarter or a half day cycle in line with the moon. If you haven't heard this before, obviously the moon dictates the tides because they're water and the gravitational pull, and human beings are made up of majority water, so it makes scientific sense that we are impacted by the moon. And within the moon, you've got the same 4 cycle energies as a menstrual cycle. So we say men have menstruation. Now, men are impacted by moods the same as women are in their menstrual cycles, and that's because they are a human being.
Yeah.
We are. We obviously have the double impact because we've got the internal hormonal things going on as well as the moon. But yeah, just kind of pay attention to how you're feeling generally when you get up in the morning. Are you getting up in the morning and saying to yourself, oh, because believe it or not, if you go, oh, guess what your day is going to be like?
Yeah.
And if you are feeling, oh, what can you do to change it to a woo every single day?
Sometimes just choosing to do something you enjoy to start your day makes a difference. So I've done a few things actually, just by chance, but that have shifted my energy, kept my energy high today. But it started with I'm studying a new program at the minute, and it's something I'm going to certify in. I'm doing it for myself, but I'm doing it because I want to bring it into my client sessions. It's not something separately I'm going to sell, but something I did want to bring in. So I wanted to qualify first because it's just always safer and better to do that, isn't it? And I knew I'd enjoy it. And I've started it this morning, and I was, you know, that's the hard thing. I was excited to start learning something new. And I tell you what, it's really shaken things up because I got to do, so it basically teaches through experience as well, working with energy actually. And starting my day off like that with that, woo, yeah, I'm going to do this, has made such a difference in how I've managed to keep on top of things today, how my energy feels. And I truly believe it's doing something you love. And I think we forget to do that first before anything else, and that for me helps me with my divine feminine energy. And I'm actually trying to work on bringing more of that back because I'm so strategic and masculine, and bring that back into my life because I'm creative and I need it. I crave it so much. But these have been amazing tips. I love this. Could talk about it all day because it really does interest me, and I work on it. And it's surprising actually because I think knowing you and having met you, I thought you'd be maybe a little bit more like me, a bit more masculine, but actually I think I've changed my thought process.
I was very masculine. I don't know whether you caught it at the beginning of the podcast. I used to be an accountant. Accountancy work is generally very masculine.
Yeah.
It's structured, it's analytical, it's da 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 da. And since I let go of the accountancy, I've been working on the divine feminine flow. So it's been about 2 years now. And I'm now, after 2 years, really starting to feel it. I ran a networking last night, and one of the ladies who came, she said, when I explain who you are to people, she's like, I explain you as somebody who just goes with the flow. And I was like, that makes sense, because I do generally, I will just go with the flow. If I'm feeling the energy in the room, I literally get swept up in it.
Yeah. I love that. And I love people who are like that as well. Especially like yourself, who understand the importance of the masculine and bringing that in and having that bit of strategy. Because I struggle where people don't do that at all, because that is so me. But having that flow at the same time, I really align with that. And I think it can work. And I just imagine yin and yang, and it just works side by side nicely. And I love that. And I really connect well with
it. I think for any person, business owner, not business owner, you have to have both. And you'll have these high masculine moments which are needed, and then you'll have these high feminine moments that are needed. That you're never going to be equaled out 24/7, because that's not how life works.
It's like a scale that needs to tip now and again, isn't it? Because there doesn't need to be a balance, because sometimes we do need more feminine, sometimes we do need more masculine, and it just has to kind of tip on each side of the scale, which is kind of the visualization I imagine of dealing with it in your business or in life, not just business, because it does apply to life as well. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I have one final thought and question for you, which I ask all my guests. And this is a masculine question. But what would be your biggest tip, your best tip for being more organised within your business?
I think for me, the biggest tip is keeping it simple.
Yeah.
Keeping it simple. It's very easy to add on, have 7,000 different things going on at one time.
Yeah.
You're smiling like, yeah, guilty.
Yeah, I
am. But yeah, my biggest tip is keep it simple. Yes, add on once you've got those first few things running smoothly, automated, so they just happen without much thought from you. But until you've got those first few things automated, simplified, and working nicely, flowing femininely in your business, after masculinely analysing them and putting them in, then add on. So that's my biggest thing. Just keep
I love that. That's so good. And if we want to connect with you further, where can we find you, Leah?
The best place to find me is on Instagram. So I am Leah Crowfoot. And I am trying my best to grow my YouTube channel. So please come and find me on YouTube. It's Money, Mindset and Business Podcast on YouTube. I think I've got 40 subscribers. I want to get to 500 by the end of 2024.
Amazing. So let's help Leah achieve that goal. And then she'll have to do some videos because there's more of us watching.
Well, yeah, I am doing 2 videos a month at the moment, but I've got plans in my head to do other things to grow the channel. So.
Oh, brilliant. So we've got to go check that out now and see what's happening over there. Thank you so much for joining us today. Go check out Leah and see what she's up to on Instagram, on YouTube, and what things she's talking about, and her podcast as well. We will put all the links into the notes for you to check out. And I'll see you in another episode anytime very soon, really, very soon.